Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're unpacking an incredibly epic historical narrative from the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church tradition. We're looking at one of the most prominent and honestly most fascinating figures in biblical history, Saint Gabriel. We're going to explore his vast, dynamic role from the very dawn of creation to being a messenger of joy, all the way to his fierce interventions in blazing literal fires. Okay, let's dive into this explainer and begin our journey at the literal beginning of time.
To really understand Gabriel, our source material actually takes us all the way back to the very first day of creation. The tradition recounts that when God first created the angels, he hid himself from them. I mean, just imagine that for a second. Waking up into existence alongside millions of other beings and having absolutely no idea how you got there. This sparked the very first question ever asked in the history of creation, echoing right there among the newly formed heavenly hosts. Who created us and where did we come from? It was this moment of just profound cosmic mystery.
And well, where there's mystery, there's usually an opportunity for deception. The account details how a high-ranking angel named Satanael, who, as we know, later became Satan, used his elevated position over the other angels to his advantage. He answered their cosmic question with a massive lie, just flat out claiming, "I am the one who created you." Now, because of his high status, this false claim completely fractured the heavenly hosts. Deep confusion set in. The angels actually split into different factions. Some bought into Satanael's lie, others firmly rejected it, and a whole lot of them just stood completely silent, totally gripped by paralyzing doubt.
Right in the middle of this absolute chaos and division, the tradition tells us that a powerful, fiery angel suddenly stood up. Picture this, a voice like roaring thunder just cutting right through the confusion of millions of divided angels, commanding them, "Let us stand in our places until we know our true creator." This booming, authoritative figure who literally stopped the panic in its tracks, that was none other than Saint Gabriel.
So the crucial point is how Gabriel's actions in that exact moment really defined his legacy. By commanding the angels to just wait for the true God, he calmed the hosts and brought peace back to the celestial world. His very name, Gabriel, actually translates to man of God, or God is my strength. And because he was the one who united the angels in faith during that very first cosmic crisis, he's recognized in the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition as the first preacher of unity, or Tewahedo. He is the foundational figure who literally held heaven together.
But as human history unfolded, Gabriel's role beautifully evolved. He shifted from that booming, cosmic voice of authority into this gentle messenger of joy and salvation. In fact, he's famous for delivering three of the most pivotal tidings of glad news in the biblical text. First up, he was sent to the priest Zechariah to announce the miraculous birth of John the Baptist. Second, he visited the Virgin Mary for the Annunciation, bringing the world-changing news that she would give birth to Jesus Christ. And third, tradition describes him as the angel who comforted the holy women at the tomb, announcing the incredible joy of Christ's resurrection.
So we've seen Gabriel as the unifier of heaven and the ultimate herald of joy, but the source material now transitions into a much darker, incredibly tense chapter of history, where his role shifts yet again. We're moving away from those joyful tidings straight down into intense physical danger. This is where Saint Gabriel operates as a fierce celestial protector.
And that brings us to one of the most prominent and really gripping stories celebrated in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It's the harrowing account of Saint Kirkos, also known as Syracuse, and his mother, Saint Ioluda, during a period of really severe Roman persecution of Christians under a ruler named Alexander. This young boy and his mom were forced to literally flee for their lives, but tragically, they were eventually captured. The governor demanded that they completely deny Christ and bow down to pagan idols, but they steadfastly refused. No way were they backing down. Because of that refusal, the governor subjected this mother and her young child to just absolutely horrific tortures. The historical account lists agonizing punishments. We're talking about having salt and mustard poured into their eyes and noses and being pierced with iron rods. It's brutal. Yet through this unimaginable ordeal, the tradition notes that God comforted them and actively minimized their pain. Furious that he just couldn't break their faith, the governor finally ordered them to be thrown into a massive cauldron filled with boiling water and molten metal.
Facing this totally terrifying cauldron, the young boy Kirkos did something pretty extraordinary. He prayed. He actually reminded his fearful mother of how God had saved others from fire in the past. And in response to that pure, unshakable faith, Saint Gabriel was sent down from heaven. The text describes Gabriel descending and physically touching the boiling pot. In a single instant, that deadly molten metal and boiling water was cooled. It was rendered entirely harmless, feeling just like cool, refreshing water.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because when young Kirkos was praying before that cauldron, he was actually referencing a very famous Old Testament event. It's a story that perfectly mirrors his own trial, and it involves the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar.
According to the biblical account, King Nebuchadnezzar had erected this massive golden statue, and he commanded that everyone in his kingdom absolutely must bow down and worship it. The penalty for refusing? Death by a fiery furnace. But 3 young Hebrew men, Azariah, Ananiah, and Misael, who you might know by their Babylonian names, Abednego, Shadrach, and Meshach, they flat out refused to worship the idol.
As you might guess, the king was completely enraged by their defiance. He ordered the furnace to be heated to a staggering extreme, 7 times hotter than it normally was. The text notes that this roaring fire was so unbelievably intense, the heat actually killed the Babylonian soldiers who were ordered to throw the 3 youths into the flames. I mean, that is the level of absolute, certain death these young men were facing. But once inside the inferno, the youths simply prayed and praised God. And once again, Gabriel, our celestial protector, is dispatched. He enters the blazing furnace, unties their bonds, and completely alters the physical reality of the fire. Right there, in the center of a furnace, heated 7 times over, Gabriel transforms the environment into a cool, dewy breeze. He keeps the 3 young men entirely, perfectly safe.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the reaction of King Nebuchadnezzar himself. He peers into the flames, totally expecting to see ashes, but he is utterly astonished. He sees not 3, but 4 men just walking around completely unharmed, and describing that majestic, protective 4th figure, which tradition identifies as Gabriel, the king famously declares, "The appearance of the 4th looks like the Son of God." It was a sight so powerful, it literally completely changed the king's entire worldview.
The conclusion of this fiery standoff in Babylon is pretty remarkable. Nebuchadnezzar calls them out of the fire, recognizes the supreme power of their God, and actually blesses the God of Azariah, Ananiah, and Misael. Not only that, but he proceeds to promote the 3 youths to even higher positions within his kingdom. Their incredible faith, paired with Gabriel's protection, literally turned a death sentence into an unbelievable triumph.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core message the source material leaves us with today. It draws a direct, powerful line between the past and the present. You see, just like St. Kirkos, St. Ialuda, and the Hebrew youths faced literal, physical fires and tortures, the teachings remind us that people today face their own kinds of fires. These modern fires are spiritual and societal. We're talking about adversity, daily trials, and this immense pressure to compromise one's beliefs.
The source material really urges us to draw strength from these ancient accounts. The lesson here is to stand firm in your faith, starting all the way from childhood, just like the incredibly brave young St. Kirkos did. It's a call to rely on that exact same celestial protection and intercession of St. Gabriel when you feel like you've been thrown into the boiling cauldrons and fiery furnaces of your own modern life.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the history and legacy of St. Gabriel, I want to leave you with this thought to ponder. Look at the trials in your own life right now. What modern fires are you facing today? And, drawing on the incredible resilience of those who came before us, how will you stand firm?
Thank you for walking among the cloud of witnesses. Please like, subscribe, and share this wisdom. Let us know your favorite saint in the comments.